All right, so let's stay focused. Let's not get too scattered because this is going to be amazing. And I want to give a shout out. My friend traveled to the Philippines with me. He's actually a pastor over in Lubeck. His name is Tom Leisure. And I just want to say thank you for coming, sir. We appreciate you being here with us for the first time. So, Pastor Tom. And Tom said he was going to go find us a bigger building, and we'll have it next week. And Pastor Ray Eubanks, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you being here. And most importantly, Jesus, we thank you for being here. Oh my goodness, man. You know, I was just thinking, like, how crazy it is that God's already started this healing process in so many of your hearts. So many of you guys, I was just standing back there during worship, and I could just see the outpouring of healing just like flooding over you. There were several people right here in this section I saw this happen to, and it's such a beautiful thing. Vanessa, what? You trying to hide from me? I didn't see you. It's this is the first thing that I want us to understand how important this is to God, what we're about to do. This is what it says in 1 Peter 1:12. 1 Peter 1:12. It says, "To them it was revealed that, not to themselves, but to us they were ministering the things which now have been reported to you through those who have preached the gospel to you by the Holy Spirit sent from heaven. Things which angels desire to look into." What is about to take place right now? Angels desire to look into this. Angels are intrigued by the healing that people are about to receive. Angels are intrigued by what God is doing in your life. You know how cool that is? That's amazing. And like tonight, I believe that this is going to be such a night of healing. The theme of this month, I think, is healing. I could safely say. And it's healing in our soul. So we think about this thing with trauma, and last week we hit on some things. And you know, I was thinking back on my life and just some of the traumatic events. Last night, Abby and I sat with my mom, and my mom, for the first time really ever, I heard her. She went through the traumatic event. She explained it all to Abby of when my sister passed away. And she was talking about details that I've never heard her talk about before. She was talking about things that were very, very traumatic. And what happened right after that moment was she said, "I didn't realize how much I needed to get this out." She released it, and God began to heal it. She was talking about things. She's like, the kids didn't know, Angel didn't know. They was messing with her. They were writing on her leg. They thought she was just asleep. And I walked by her once, and my leg touched her leg, and it was just cold. And I thought to myself, oh, I better get her a blanket. And she said, this whole time I didn't know that she was actually passed away. And as she was releasing this, it was very emotional, because sometimes healing is emotional. But as she released it, I saw God begin to bring some healing to her. And this is what I thought. It's your soul. It's the wounds in our soul that we have to take care of. It's those soul wounds that kind of keep us jacked up. It's those ones that we just kind of, we just shove down and we don't actually address them. This is what happens when you don't address it. This is so crazy. Proverbs 27:7. It says, when your soul... This is so crazy. When your soul is full, you turn down even the sweetest honey. Meaning, like, I don't need it, man. I'm good. My soul is healed up. I don't need that in my life. I'm good to go. You don't have to add anything, because I feel perfectly content because I have wholeness. But this next part, but when your soul is starving, every bitter thing becomes sweet. Every bitter thing becomes sweet. When your soul is damaged and your soul is wounded, all those things that are like, toxic, you're drawn to. You ever notice that? You ever notice that when you're in a jacked up state, you're drawn to toxicity? And you ask yourself, you're like, I don't understand why I'm just keep being drawn to this. Well, this tells you it's because there's wounds in your soul that hasn't been healed yet. So therefore, anything that's toxic looks like it's sweet. And it's not that it's good for you, it's that you're empty inside. So you fill yourself with all this garbage, gossip, slander, all this stuff, all this negativity. When you allow negativity to be the driving force in your life, I can tell one thing about you. Your soul is starving. When you're the person that goes around and all you do is point out is what's wrong about everything, your soul is starving. Because if not, you wouldn't be so easily swayed by the petty things. Well, I was waiting for my friend Alex over there. There he is. There he is. And so realize this. Are you drawn to some jacked up stuff? Do you still have some times in your life where you're like, that gossip seems real enticing? It's because there's something missing. It's because there's wounds and trauma that you've never allowed God to heal yet. And so what happens is you find yourself chasing after the wrong things. Like, this is a question you have to truly ask yourself. Have I become comfortable in my dysfunction? Uh-oh. We step on some toes. Have I become comfortable with my dysfunction to the point where it seems normal to me? And when you take me out of my dysfunction and you put me in a normal place, it feels like dysfunction because I'm so used to dysfunction. That's, again, because there's trauma in your life that hasn't been dealt with. So your coping mechanisms has become very unhealthy. The way you operate and navigate through life is very unhealthy. And it's because your soul is still damaged. And there's still some trauma that God needs to heal up. You can love Jesus with all your heart and still have trauma that's not dealt with. It don't mean you don't love Jesus. Don't get it twisted and think like, well, I'm not saved if I do. No, you can be saved and still be jacked up. I'm a perfect example of that. But there's these things that God's going to take us through, man. There's these things because, see, stuff comes up. There's these questions like, this is so crazy. This is so crazy. John 5:6. This is what it says in the Passion Translation. When Jesus saw him laying there, he knew that the man had been crippled for a long time. So Jesus said to him, do you truly long to be healed? Or you just want to stay like you are? Do you really desire to be whole? Or are you perfectly okay with your dysfunction? This is the question we have to begin to ask ourselves. Do I really want wholeness in my life? Or is there part of myself that I'm just not willing to let go of to be able to step into the wholeness that God has for me? Why are you coming in here right now? That was a good one. Come on, Jesus. And then you have to think about this. There's this thing called spiritual trauma. You know what spiritual trauma is? It is actually... Okay, do you know what the word spirit, do you know where it comes from? It comes from this word in the Greek that means breath. See, it don't do it when y'all do it. Y'all try it. Go. Don't have the same effect, does it? There's a spiritual trauma because what happens is you quench the spirit when you're led by the soul. So that's called spiritual trauma because you're not allowing the spirit to operate because you are reacting to the soul, the mind, will, and emotions. So you're not even allowing yourself to be led by the spirit because every time an emotion arises, guess what you do? You agree with it and you react to it, and then your action follows that very thing. And you are quenching the spirit from working in your life. That is your spiritual trauma. One of the things that gets us in trouble the most is our mouth. We quench ourselves from being spiritual because of our mouth. Because the mouth might be the smallest thing, but guess what? It controls the whole ship. And when the ship is going astray, guess what? Jeremy said something one night. What's it say, Jeremy? About a fool is even wise when he does what? A fool is wise when he keeps silent. A fool is wise when he keeps silent. And sometimes we can't stop our mouths from running. And then we get ourselves in trouble. Then the next thing you know, we're being led by our soul. And you know, everybody's heard this before, but this is such a true statement. Y'all have heard this statement, because see, what happens is a traumatic event, it takes your breath away. It takes the spirit away. When trauma happens, it takes your away. I'm doing that all night, by the way. And then it leaves you feeling numb. Then it leaves you feeling disconnected. And the thing about being healed is that you have to have this connection to the Spirit in order to be made whole. But what happens is trauma takes the breath right out of you. So then, therefore, you're separated from the Spirit. So you cannot find healing. And it's because the traumatic event that you went through in your life has separated you from the breath of life that you need breathed inside of you. But we can't stop agreeing with the trauma long enough in order to receive the breath that we need to be able to walk in wholeness. That's what we got to get to. Like, realize it, man. You go get that. Sometimes life's going to come at you. Sometimes some stuff's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to get the breath knocked out of you. But how do you respond in those moments? This is what matters, man, because it's going to happen. You're going to go through some stuff. There's going to be things that happen in your life. And I'm not trying to be, numb to the fact that it's hard, because it is hard. But God knew when He created this earth that there was going to be trauma. You know how I know He knew this? Because He sent His Son to go through the worst of it for us. So you can't tell me God didn't know you were going to have to walk through some things. But at the same time, He gives us a guideline to be able to be healed by. Like, He gives us a guide that we can be healed by. Like, He knew we was going to have to go through some things. This little quote that says, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." So we're not human beings like trying to get to the Spirit. God made you to be a spiritual being. And so what you have to learn to do is you have to learn. You live in this flesh. And you have to operate with this soul, this mind, these will, these emotions. But what you have to learn how to do is allow yourself to be Spirit-led so that you're not being led by your soul. And it's so crazy. I have some questions for you guys. I came up with some questions about your trauma. And this is the first one. Questions you have to ask yourself. This is number one. Are you aware of your trauma? Are you aware of it? Do you know where it lies? Do you know where it came from? Because not knowing where it came from, you can never find the healing from it. Number two is this. Can you identify the root of it? Because if you can't identify the root of it, you'll never be able to find healing from it. Because last week, what we did, and Tonda's specific prayer, was for God to show you trauma in your life. To show you things in your life you haven't dealt with. That is the root. And then you have to then be able to do this. And this is the hard part. Are you willing to face it? Because you can have it going on in your life, but if you're not ready to face it, guess what? You're never going to be healed from it. You have to be willing to face it. Can you face what you have been hurt by? It's not easy, but nobody said it would be. The next one is this. Are you ready to relive some of those moments? Because you can't find healing if you're not. And it ain't easy, man. Do you know that when I go through in my mind, I relive some moments. I'm going to pause right here for just a second to tell you all this story. It's so embarrassing. And it's a traumatic story, though. I remember I had gotten into this car crash, right? So I got this settlement of like $14,000. And my smart self said, give it to me all in cash. So I had this stack of $14,000 walking around like I was a baller. Like, yeah, I'm buying everything. Getting new Jordans, knowing I'm selling them next week because I'm going to be dope sick. Buying TVs, PlayStations, all this stuff. And within 2 weeks, I was broke. Let me tell you how this is dramatic, too. Let me tell you how dramatic I was. This is how my mind would rationalize, and this is rooted in trauma. I'm telling this story for a purpose, because this is what I did. I lived down below my mom and dad. I lived in this house, and I lived by myself, and I I faked a robbery. I faked a robbery, like I got robbed. Oh, it gets better. I stabbed myself right here in my belly, like 7 times. Not deep. Like I wouldn't go, like that deep. I wouldn't stab myself too deep. I'm like, ow, ow. Okay, that's enough. You think they'll believe it now? Ow. See, ow. I just want y'all to know that y'all, like, we're all jacked up. It's okay. So then it gets better. Y'all ready for the rest of this? Then first I called my mom and dad. I'm like, Mom, I just got robbed. Just get down here. And then they call the police. So here comes the police, and the police are walking around. They're like, huh. I'm like, yeah, they took like $5,000 cash. They took my TV. They took my PlayStation, and they stabbed me. And they were like, who was it? I was like, I don't know. They had a mask on. What? But I was so broken. My mind was rationalizing this way. You know what I did? I agreed with the brokenness. And I reacted to the brokenness to the point where I even fake stabbed myself, man. Come on. So I don't ever want y'all to be embarrassed of your stories ever again after I told you that one. So what happened was this. Like, I had to relive that last night because my mom brought it up. And I had almost forgot about it. You know what I realized? And this is where it gets real. I had forgot completely about it. You know why? It's because I suppressed it. And it's one of those things that obviously I'm not proud of, but I mean, it's funny now. But at the same time, I had to look at this. I had to walk back through the situation. I remember the details. I remember I was dope sick when it happened. I remember all the emotions that came with it, and all of those came up last night. But what's crazy is I was able to step outside of this moment of trauma and look at it and realize, like, man, God healed that area too. Because why was I suppressing it? Why was I not bringing this up? So there were still areas I needed to find healing. And I look at it and I'm like, man, God, I want you to heal every area of my heart. I don't care if you have to bring up the most ridiculous, crazy stories ever. I want this trauma to be gone in my life because guess what? That is a comical story, and it's real dramatic, but it's also traumatic because I was that broken and that jacked up. So I looked at this moment and I said, God, if there's any of those jacked up areas still in me, please heal them. Are you ready to relive some of those moments? Are you ready to look at them for what they really are? And it ain't easy sometimes. I mean, that one was funny, but there's other ones that are serious that you have to look at. When my mom's telling this story, and I'm hearing her tell this story, and I'm getting tears in my eyes because I remember the day, and she's going into detail, I'm realizing what's happening is as I'm releasing God's healing. Don't hold it in. Don't suppress it. Because God will show it to you. And he wants to heal it. Man, the next question would be this. Are you willing to forgive the people that hurt you? Because this one's not easy. This one is a hard one. Because in my story, I hurt myself. But in several of your stories, there's people that's hurt you. Now you have to ask yourself this real question. Are you willing to forgive them? The forgiveness ain't about them. The forgiveness is for you. The forgiveness is so that you can walk in wholeness, so that you can be complete, so that you can be victorious, so that you don't have to carry around the resentment and the bitterness that you've carried in your heart towards them people all these years. Tonight is a night that God's healing that unforgiveness in your heart. The next question would be this. Are you really ready to let go of it? Are you ready to truly let go? And I ain't talking about say, I let go. I'm talking about emotionally, are you ready to let go of it? Because there's a difference between saying, yeah, I let go of it, but in my heart, I'm really hanging on to it. Are you ready to let go of it tonight? There's healing in this room. Are you really ready to let go? Because if not, what's going to happen is there's going to be a perpetual cycle that happens in your life, and these things are going to keep happening, and you're going to keep hitting these stumbling blocks, and it all boils down because you won't let go. Man, this is the next one is so real, y'all. Are you willing to be vulnerable before God and those people that are helping you find the healing? Because I think God's taking us to a new place. Like, I think God's taking us to a place where we have to be able to be whole, where we have to be able to be vulnerable before Him, where we have to be able to have someone we can have that outlet to. And this is a real question, too. Do you know your identity outside of your trauma? Do you know who you are outside of it? Like, do you really know? Or has that become part of who you really are? Because there's so many of us in this room, we identify with it. When we think about ourselves, this is what we think. We think we're the victim. And they did this to me. And it's not fair that they did this to me. But tonight, God wants you to shift that mindset to victorious instead of victim. The next one is this. Are you aware of your triggers? Can you recognize a trigger when it comes into your life? Can you see it? Can you identify it? Because if not, you could be one. And listen, man, I'm in recovery, and that word I think has been used to death. Like, I went by a red light, and when it turned green, it triggered me. When I opened my eyes this morning, I was triggered. I'm like, really? But in reality, let me ask you this. The real triggers in your life that trigger your trauma, that trigger you to emotionally agree with it, can you identify those? Because those are the ones you got to know. Those are the ones you have to know. Because if not, what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself again in the perpetual cycle. And the last one is this. Do you desire to be free? What Jesus asked the lame man. Do you want to be free? Are you willing to step into the freedom? Do you want what He has for you? Do you truly want it? Do you want it? Because guess what? You got to fight for it. Sometimes you got to get up, you got to put those boxing gloves on, and you got to go head to head with that stuff, man. Are you willing to do it? There's got to be this desire. There's got to be this hunger. There's got to be this thing inside of you that says, I know it's going to be hard. I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm going to push through all the triggers. I'm going to push through all of the resistance. I'm going to push through all of the doubts. I'm going to push through all these things that would keep me stuck where I'm at because I'm tired of being where I am, and I know God's trying to take me to a new place. There's so much more for you, man. There's so much more than you. There's so much more. And let me ask you this. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Is it the unknown? Is it the vulnerability? Is it success? Is it not knowing who you are without that thing in your life? What are the things that you are agreeing with that are keeping you stuck? What are those things? Because those are the things we got to look at. Those are the things that God wants to heal in your life. Those are the things we have to really step outside of ourselves. You know, one of the greatest things, if you're able to do it, is this. Man, step outside of your circumstance and try to look at it. I know that sounds crazy and it sounds ridiculous, but I promise it's possible because I got to do it all the time. Because I have to look at things as a whole. Sometimes we are so, focused just on our lens, my perspective, what's going on through my mind. Have you ever stepped outside of it and looked at the situation? Have you tried looking at it from a different perspective? Because that's where you're going to find probably the healing that you need. Because through our broken lens, sometimes, man, stuff looks a little different than it does if we step outside and look inside. Like God wants to heal your whole body. He wants your body to be whole. He wants your spirit to be whole. He wants your soul to be whole in every part of you because you have these emotional patterns inside of you. And it's made up of your personality. It's who you are as a person. It's the way God made you. But what's happened over time is the enemy has came in and he's actually perverted and twisted certain things that were meant to be gifts. And they are now the things that leave you crushed. Are you willing to look at those things? Because those emotional things, those reactions, when something happens and like there's certain, everybody's got pet peeves. Like I got pet peeves. I got a bunch of pet peeves. But what I realize is a lot of those are emotional traumas that I haven't allowed God to heal. So what I do in that moment is from my self-righteous lens is I pick people apart. Ooh. That one was for somebody. Probably me, but it could have been for somebody else too. Because it's easy, man. It's easy to sit back and just be critical. It's easy to sit back and point out fault. But you know what I would rather do? I would rather focus on purpose. I'd rather focus on Christ. I would rather leave the drama where it belongs and be whole and go forward. That's where God's trying to take us, man. That's where He wants to take you. Man, this is so Psalm 25:1. It says, "Forever I lift up my soul." That's your mind, your will, and your emotions. Forever I lift up my soul into your presence, into your breath, into your spirit. Forever I lift up. Do you get this? Forever. You need to lift those emotions up to Him. You need to lift those thoughts up to Him. Because it says in Isaiah that His thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. So when I can lift those up to Him and say, "Here, God, I don't think this is correct, but will you show me the right perspective I should be looking at this at?" When I lift up my will, like my will, because I want to do things my way, and I lift up my soul because my mind, my will, my emotions, and I say, "God, here's my will. I know my will is probably not the right way, but I want to put it into your presence so you can direct it." And God, mind, will, emotions. Take my emotions because I'm tired of reacting to them. I'm tired of every time somebody says something, I act this certain way. You know those little things that we call, "This is just who I am." Those little things, those are emotional traumas. Those are when we just want to really be rude, but then we want to be like, "Well, this is just the way God made me. You better deal with it or go on somewhere." Let me tell you something. Number one, that's annoying as all get out. I'm just kidding. Kind of. But number two, let me tell you this, on being for real though, that's an emotional trauma. That's an emotional trauma that we haven't dealt with. And sometimes we just accept it to be who we are. And we accept lies about ourselves. And what happens is, there's relationships that we are supposed to be building, but instead that emotional trauma makes me deflect away from the people that I'm supposed to be pulling near me. And what happens is I'm probably missing out on parts of my purpose, parts of my destiny, parts of what God has ahead of me, because I have this emotional trauma. And instead of lifting it up into His presence, I'm reacting every time I feel it. And there's so much more for us, man. There's such a level of wholeness God's trying to take us to. I was like, this is what it says in 1 Peter 5:7. Like, because some of y'all are carrying some stuff, man. There's some of y'all tonight, you carried some stuff in this door. You carried some hurts into this place. Let me tell you something. This is what it says. Casting all of your care upon Him. Why? Because He truly does care about those little things. Sometimes we think to ourselves, like, He don't care about that. That's just a small, minute thing. God don't care about that. No, He cares about every little thing. He knows every hair on your head. Dennis, He knows you don't have any hair on your head. But He cares about it. But He knows every little thing about you, everything that God made about you, every little weird, quirky thing that you have inside of you, He cares about that. And those are the things that He wants to reveal so that He can make them whole. Man, He restores my soul. Psalm 23. He restores my soul. He restores my soul. Man, He restores it. Who restores it? He does. Who is He? Who? Jesus. Who restores your soul? Jesus. Come on, man. There's just, okay, we're going just a couple more things because I want to get to the part of healing. I want to hit 5 little points real fast. Number 1, take the position of trust. When these things happen in your life, it says that He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom to the captives, and release them from darkness for the prisoners. Isaiah 61:1. Like, you can know that you can trust Him. And there's some of you in this room, the reason that we are missing out on trust. What? Ah! I trust you, God. Get that stink bug off of me. Now he's on one of y'all. I trust you, God, that stink bug went on somebody else and not me. I saw her point, and I was like, my pants are unzipped or something dumb. Yeah, so I had to stop. Sorry. So take the position of trust. Number 1, take the position of trust. You can be assured He's going to have your back every single time. Number 2, reestablish forgiveness. This is what happened. When Peter went to Jesus, he said, God, Lord, how many times should we forgive our brother or sister who sinned against me? This is Matthew 18:21-22. He said 7 times? No, 70 times 7. That means that there are some people, even though you said it with your mouth a couple times, there's still some unforgiveness in your heart. Do you know what harbors resentment? What harbors resentment? Unforgiveness. And you know how simple it is sometimes? You know that sometimes we'll be mad at people for a week, not say a word, be salty to everybody around us. They don't even know that we're mad at them, and it's because they said something sideways. And this is how simple. The Bible says this. Sweetheart, when you told me my outfit was ugly, it hurt my feelings. She didn't really say that, but she's like, baby, you hot. But this is how simple it is. We carry around some stuff sometimes that is so simple to get rid of. All we have to do is go to that person and be like, and you know what? I respect, there's somebody in this room did that to me. And I respected it so much. They came up to me and they said, I've been bitter towards you. And I was like, okay, because I didn't know. But guess what happened? It freed them. And they're not bitter no more. I don't think, anyways. But what happens is when you go to that person, you release it. And some of y'all's carrying some stuff you need to release. And what happens is this. When bitterness is in your heart, you cannot receive the fullness of the Spirit. It blocks you off spiritually and you can't receive. So make sure you get rid of that. And this is the third one is you don't need to handle it alone. Because sometimes we think to ourselves, like, I'll just get over here and I'll pray and I'll read and I'll do it because I don't want them to know my stuff I got going on and I'll just handle it myself. No, God created you for a relationship. When think about this, when he put Adam into the garden, he's like, it ain't good for him to be alone. Let me send him a helper. You need a helper. Find you a helper. And just a friend. Not a boo thing. Just a helper to get you through your troubles. But the reality is really this, guys. Like, you can't walk this out alone. Like, you have to have people that can spiritually pour into you. You have to have people. I love having prophetic friends. One of the coolest things in the world is find you some people that have some prophetic giftings in their life because they will speak some things that will change your life. And that is necessary for the edification of the body. I love that part of things. So number 4 is this. Receive the healing that God is trying to give you. Receive it. You are worthy to receive it. I don't care what you did. He wants to forgive you. You have to have your heart in a position that's ready to receive it. And this is the last thing that I want to go into. This is... I'm skipping some of this because we're going to do another week. But y'all remember when we did that shipwrecked week? Some of y'all might have remembered that. And there was this part that stood out to me last night when I was praying. And it was the part where we talked about like when, so some of you guys that are not familiar, Paul was going to Rome and their ship wrecked. And so when they wrecked on this island called Malta, and when they were when they were on Malta, what happened is Paul reached in to start a fire and a viper bit his hand. And this is so revealing to me that he didn't die, number one. You know what that tells me? Y'all are all still alive sitting here. Number 2, there was this guy and his father was dying. He was like the chief of the island. He was dying. And Paul goes over with the same hand that had the trauma and prayed and healed. Your trauma can bring healing to others. When you allow God to heal your trauma, you can bring healing to others' trauma. Like, that's what you have to realize. There's a reason the world needs to know. There's a reason the world needs to know I stabbed myself 7 times on accident. But there's a reason why we have to know why we go through things, because there's somebody else going through the same exact thing, and they need to know that you found a way out so that you can help them find a way out. Stop suppressing the things God has inside of you. There's more inside of you. And I think about trauma, man. What is trauma? What is trauma? When you think about it, it's this blunt hit. When you think about physical trauma, if you talk to people like EMT people, they'll be like, trauma is like this blunt force, and it leaves this mark, and it scars people, and it goes beyond the outer part of the skin, and it goes deeper than that. So trauma goes deep physically. And I started reading this last night, and I was like, man, so there's this man, his name is Jesus. And there was this moment in time when this guy named Judas betrayed him. And so what happened was they came and they arrested Jesus. And as they arrested Jesus, they began to brutally beat him. I'm talking trauma where you couldn't even recognize his face. Like, he took trauma that we really deserve, but he took for us. And so Jesus goes And he's standing before Pilate. And this is so crazy to me. This is like his response. You don't have to respond to the enemy when he tries to provoke your trauma. Jesus taught us how to walk through trauma. I read this last night and I'm like, man. Now Jesus stood before the governor. And the governor asked him, saying, are you the King of Jews? And Jesus said to him, it is as you say. And while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, and sometimes that's us, sometimes we are those people, he answered nothing. He didn't respond. He didn't respond. Then Pilate said to him, do you not hear how many things they testify against you? But he answered not one word. He didn't answer to that trauma because he knew there was a purpose. He knew there was something bigger ahead. And then this is where it gets so heartbreaking. So the governor marveled greatly. Now at the feast of the governor was accustomed to release. They released one prisoner during this time of year. And they said, we have two people that were up for nomination. We have this guy named Barabbas. Everybody say Barabbas. So Barabbas is this terrible guy. He's a murderer. He's a thug. He's this terrible person. We have Barabbas right here. And over here, we have this man named Jesus. Everybody say Jesus. And Jesus is standing here without saying a word. And there's all these people accusing him. And they had already beaten him. He had went through emotional trauma because he was being beaten. But he was being beat down emotionally also. And he was going through all this trauma. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, there's this moment where the people could have just said, he's not guilty of anything. Let him go. Let him go. But instead, with the evilness in their heart, they said, let Barabbas go. Let Barabbas go. And so here goes Jesus off to the cross, carrying my sin, carrying your trauma, carrying my emotional hurts, carrying my unforgiveness, carrying my drug addiction, carrying my hurt, carrying my pain. And there goes Barabbas, just walking away free. Never did it say that he looked back and was like, thank you, Jesus, for setting me free. He didn't care at all. But you know what? As Jesus was walking to that cross, taking everybody's trauma, he looked at Barabbas and he said, I love him just the same, regardless of what he's done to me. And I began to think about all the traumas in my life. And I began to see, like, he carried this for me. He carried this for you. He went to this cross and he took, like, they were mocking him. They made this crown made of thorns and stuck it on his head. So you can imagine his head was bleeding. And there's all this trauma happening right here. Meanwhile, Barabbas goes free. It never says what happens with Barabbas' life, but I realized something. We're Barabbas. And he took the trauma. Why are we still carrying it? He took it for you. There's people in this room that's carrying stuff that you were not supposed to carry, that Jesus already took for you. He gave the greatest demonstration of how to walk through trauma. You know what? Daniel said this interesting fact before service tonight. He was like, he's on the cross. He's up there for hours. And here's Jesus going through all this pain. And even as they're ridiculing him, he says, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Can we have that heart towards the people that hurt us? Can we look at it and say, God, I forgive them. It wasn't right what they did to me. What they did to me wasn't fair. They had no right to violate me. But Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because Jesus found freedom in that moment. And then there's this moment. The moment that probably killed Jesus is the moment when God looked away. Without the presence of God, he could no longer survive. And so he's there on this cross. Every hurt that you feel right now in this moment, he felt. Every withdrawal symptom that you've ever felt coming off of drugs, he felt. And he took that for you. So why are you still carrying it? Why? Tonight is the night to let it go. This is the last thing, and then we're going to pray. Man. You know what's so crazy? In Isaiah 53:5, it says, he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement for our peace was upon him. And guess what? By those stripes that he took on his back, we were what? Healed. What were we? Healed. Who's ready to step into that tonight, man? We were healed by that. This moment of despair, this moment he's on the cross and he's hurting, that was for you. By his stripes tonight, you are going to reclaim your healing. And I am not sitting here telling you that every problem in your life leaves you forever, but I'm telling you this. We started a process of healing last week, and it will continue tonight, and it will continue into next week. This is what's so crazy. The last thing was this. This was so, I could not believe this when I read it. I'm like, man, you guys remember when, before Jesus took the trauma, right before he took the trauma, this is what happened. Oh my goodness, Matthew 26, 6 through 13. And Jesus was in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, and a woman came to him having an alabaster flask of very costly, fragrant oil, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. And the disciples saw it, and they were indignant, saying, why would you waste this? This oil is worth like a year of wages. Why would you pour this on his head? We could have fed poor people with this. We could have did so much for this. And this is what Jesus said. Why do you trouble this woman? For she has done a good work for me. For you may always have the poor with you, but with me you don't always have. For in pouring this fragrant oil on my body, she did it for my burial. Assuredly, I say to the world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her. She poured it out on him. That's what we're going to do. We're going to lay it down at his feet. We're going to find and reclaim that healing that he already took for us. I'm not sitting here, I promise you, man, I'm not telling you that life's going to be perfect in any way, but I'm telling you this, tonight, there's some things in your heart that God's wanting you to let go. He is moving you more and more and more into healing. He's moving you closer and closer into wholeness. And tonight is that night. So if we could get the worship team, we could get Tonda. We're going to begin to pray because I know this to be true. I know that what God started here tonight, he ain't finished. He ain't finished.
Yeah, okay. As we were going through this service, the Lord reminded me of something. Between 25, 30 years ago, somewhere in there, I picked up Christianese, and I got that Christianese down pat, boy. Knew how to say all the right things and could give the answer. Oh, yeah. You know, so everybody knows I'm fine. The problem was, my mind is what knew it. My emotions still acted the same way they used to. So I've got my soul in conflict. And the problem was, I had it here, but I had not gotten that thing, that revelation in my spirit. And in order to get your healing, it has to come down in your spirit. The Holy Spirit is in here wanting to drop that revelation in you tonight. And some of you, you may not like me saying this, but you need to drop the Christianese and get real with yourself.
That's right.
Because you know what's going to happen? Your heart's going to harden.
Come on.
It will harden your heart. Why? Because you've blocked that part off. You've locked it away. And it becomes sick, hard. And believe me, it will bleed out. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be a week from now. But it will be, because those triggers, when those triggers hit, it will bleed all over the people that triggered you. And so tonight, in this place, I believe the Lord is saying, please, let's drop the Christianese and let's get real so that we can have some healing, so that we can get it down in our spirit, so that we can be whole, so that we can, because you can't give what you don't have, and we're called to give what God's given us to others. You can't give it if you ain't got it. And God's saying, come get it tonight. Come get it tonight.
Yeah. So if that's you, man, let's not waste time. I know that for so many people in this room, like I felt it so strongly the whole message. And if you know that's for you, don't you dare walk out of that door. If you have to wait a minute to get prayer, it's worth the wait. So as they go into this, if that is you, come on up. We want to start praying now. You guys ready? All right, let's get it. So.
Never change, always you stay the same, faithful, you're always near, even where I am, you'll find me here, when the waves crash over my soul and my world spins out of control. You stand by me, you will stand by me. When the mountain gets too hard to climb, my heart is weak, my eyes are blind. You stand by me, you will stand by me. Over my soul and my world spins out of control. You stand by me, you will stand by me. When the mountain gets too hard to climb, my heart is weak, my eyes are blind. You stand by me, yes, you have, Lord. You will stand by me. You will stand by me. Never get lost holding on to you. Never get lost when you're holding me. You stand by me. You will stand by me. Say never get lost. I'll never get lost when you're holding me. Never get lost when you're holding me. Stand by me, you will stand by me. One more time, never get lost holding on to you. over my soul and my world spins out of control. You'll stand by me. You will stand by me. When the mountain gets too hard to climb, my heart is weak, my eyes are blind. You stand by me, Lord. You will stand by me. You stand. You stand by me. Yes, you have. You stand by me. You will stand by me. Oh, I feel him in this place tonight. Over my soul and my world spins out of control. You stand by me. You will stand by me. When the mountain gets too hard to climb, my heart is weak, my eyes are blind. You stand by me. You will stand by me. We declare it. Holding me, never get lost when you're holding me. You stand by me. You will stand by me. Never get lost holding on to you. Never get lost when you're holding me. You stand by me. Yes, you will stand by me. I know you're standing by my side, Lord. Never get lost holding on to you. Never get lost when you're holding me. You stand by me. You will stand by me. Let's sing that. Never get lost one more time. Never get lost holding on to you. Never get lost when you're holding me. You stand by me. You will stand by me. I'll be by your side whenever you fall in the dead of night, whenever you call. And please don't fight these hands that are holding you. My hands are holding, here's my side whenever you fall in the dead of night, whenever you call. And please don't fight these hands that are holding you. My hands are holding, here's my side whenever you fall in the dead of night, whenever you call. And please don't fight these hands that are holding you. My hands are holding, and I'll be by your side whenever you fall in the dead of night, whenever you call. And please don't fight these hands that are holding you. My hands are holding, here's my side. holy ground, holy ground. Though the earth may pass away, my God is faithful. Holy ground, oh, I'm standing on holy ground. Though the earth may pass away, my God won't fall. And I will run and not grow weary. I will walk and will not faint. Though the earth may pass away, my God is faithful. And I will spread my wings like eagles. I will soar and not lose strength. Though the earth may pass away, my God is faithful. Yeah, I'm standing on holy ground, holy ground. Though the earth may pass away, my God is faithful. Yeah, I'm standing on holy ground, holy ground. Though the earth may pass away, my God won't fall. And will not faint. Though the earth may pass away, my God is faithful. And I will spread my wings.